Welcome, welcome, one and all, back to another season of The Future is Female. It is 2021. I, of course, am your host, Gabby Ducharme, joined here today, as always, by my legendary co host, Nicole Pinter. Nicole, last time we met, it was still 2020, and we were in two completely different states. Like, I was in a different state as well. I wasn't in Phoenix, Arizona, where the Bill Austin radio studios, of course, are located. We're still on Zoom, though. We're still making it work. Nicole, how have you been so far in your new year?
So far, okay. So far, 2021 has been okay. It's not 2020, so that's a step up. No one's going to forget 2020, that's for sure. But glad for a new year and a refreshing new start.
Yeah, it is really nice to have a refreshing new start, especially after the chaos that was 2020. Apparently, the chaos doesn't want to stay in 2020, though. As we continue working, you're working, of course, from Illinois. I'm working from Arizona, and we're currently on a Zoom call. So, of course, we're not back in the Bill Austin radio studios quite yet. Hopefully, we'll get there one day. Hopefully, next season we'll be in there for sure. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that we still have this form of technology to stay in touch and, of course, talk sports the best way, the only way that we here at The Future is Female know how to do. Getting right into it, though, of course, Nicole, we got a lot to get to. A lot happened in the few weeks that we were off. Just break it down for us. Catch us up. What happened at the end of 2020 and into the new year?
Well, at the end of 2020 were bowl games, the ones that were played for college football, but we start with the NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. Three games in a day, 2 triple headers. It was glorious. In the AFC, the Bills beat the Colts, the Ravens beat the Titans in a comeback win, and the Browns absolutely downed the Steelers in a 28-0 lead in the first quarter. The game was over. In the NFC, the Rams kind of shocked the Seahawks. Seahawks did not look good at all. The Bucs topped the Washington football team despite Taylor Heineke's heroic efforts. And the Saints, it's my favorite, I came up with this one. Saints slimed the Bears in the Nickelodeon game. I didn't even put that down. Okay, that might take up our focus. Not the Bears. We don't have to do that.
We don't have to go there? Wait, just to be clear.
I will find Javon Wims and I will teach him how to catch a ball. Anyways.
Wait, just to be clear, we don't have to focus on the fact that your team lost, but we do get to focus on, we're going to take advantage of Nickelodeon and
yes,
what they were able to do in NFL football and getting kids intrigued. All right, kids, sorry about that. You're just going to get taken advantage of for a little bit. Blame Nicole Pinter. You didn't hear it from me, but blame Nicole Pinter.
Are you done?
Not even close. Not even close. Are you kidding me?
Okay,
I
but
never ever am.
Let's get down to business. Did you watch any of it on Nickelodeon, and what were your thoughts?
It honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, the NFL, genius PR move. Absolute genius PR move. When you're talking about trying to get little kids and their families interested in football, it's like, okay, let's just ignore all the other stuff about head injuries and CTE and all of that. Let's focus on having fun. Let's focus on slime. Let's focus on, the channel that brought us Drake and Josh and the channel that brought us iCarly and, all of these iconic child actors that you and I grew up watching. Connecting the NFL, connecting the Nickelodeon, just pure genius. Good for you. Whichever marketing person came up with that idea to say, hey, let's call Nickelodeon and have a game on, whoever did that, they should get a raise. They just need to be the highest paid person in the front office, not the owner, not the GM, none of that BS. No, pay the marketing person who literally just allowed you to tap into an entire new generation of people, of little human beings that don't know any better, and that when they're glued to the television, they think they're going to watch Drake and Josh. Oh, it turns out they're going to watch NFL football instead. All of a sudden, their brains are going to start
and have young Sheldon explain what a hold is.
Literally.
Could you imagine young Sheldon explaining what CTE is? Why the ball bouncing out of the back of the end zone is a touchback? Why that's a head-to-head hit?
like there's just so much they can do with it from here. They can do so much more than just play games. Like they can have players attached to it and marketing deals and all these different things. So just like that's my comment on it. I just think it's an absolute PR genius, and the person who came up with the idea or who sealed the deal on the partnership with Nickelodeon, give them a raise. Okay, just that team of people, y'all are awesome. Good, go. You guys go. You guys just made your careers. Nicole, what were your thoughts on it?
I agree with you. I thought it was brilliant, and I thought the whole cast and crew did great. I think it was Noah Eagle, Nate Burleson were kind of Noah Eagle, the son of Ian Eagle, who was amazing. He will be on CBS or Fox one of these days. Nate Burleson, love him on NFL Network and also CBS. I believe her name's Alyssa Green. She's on the newer All That. And then Mr.
Noah...
Lex Lumpkin. And they were all great. Like Alyssa was sort of the person who didn't understand football as much, but she was like a bunch of kids back home. That was them. And it was so cool. Like they explained football better than I think some analysts could explain football. Like it was just really well done. And it was fun. It was goofy, but I hope they do it again. I want to see it more. I really do. I wish it wasn't the Bears game because that is what I would have watched it on, but because it was my team, I had to watch CBS. But I thought it was brilliant. Also, you know what? Pat Mahomes can have a Super Bowl trophy because Mitch Trubisky has the MVP, the Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player. So take that. Dan Marino, Joe Montana, none of those guys have an MVP, but you know who does? Mitch Trubisky. That's all.
The only way I'm reciting MVP from here on out is Madam Vice President. Mitch Trubisky just disgraces all all of that. He's just a disgrace to the
MVP.
That's what it is. It's MVP. Nickelodeon. Correct. The Nickelodeon valuable player, MVP?
Yes, correct.
Love it. Okay.
Kids voted on it. Hey, kids voted on it, all right?
Yes, kids voted on it. Children whose brains are not fully developed, who don't understand football, who are learning football as they go.
Our brains aren't fully developed, Gabby. Our brains aren't fully developed up until 25. No. Kids are smart, all right? Let's stop talking down to them. Have you seen Soul like that? I could go on. Soul's amazing. Anyways, let's move on to college football playoff, where it was once again somewhat disappointing and somewhat repetitive. We discussed on our last show, and our predictions were mostly right. Alabama took out Notre Dame, who made it in as a fourth team fairly easily. I think the Notre Dame's only win is that they ended up putting up more points on Ohio State. Ohio State ended up shocking Clemson, and in the game, most analysts, most people did not give them a chance to completely shut down Trevor Lawrence. But Alabama would trounce Ohio State to win their 18th national title, Saban's 7th, and his 6th with the team. The one other, of course, when he was at rival LSU. Gabby, what were your thoughts on the college football playoff? And we get 6 more years of this, or 5.
My initial thought is, God bless journalism school professor Paula Bovin. She's on the college football playoff committee. Like I was kind of praying for her after the selections came out and stuff, just because like that sounds like a really hard job. Like it looks really amazing to do, but it just looks really hard. And you have a lot of people, telling you a lot of different things about what you should and should not do and all of that. So, like shout out to her for doing the best she could. Knowing that there's like a human being that I know like behind all those decisions, it softens my heart just a little bit, like for what they decide and how they decided all that. But anyways, like my first initial thought was after Clemson lost to Ohio State was like, I hope this doesn't hurt Trevor Lawrence's draft stock. And when you go back and look at the fact that he only lost 2 games total in his time at Clemson, he played there for 3 years. He lost 2 games. It's a pretty good record. You play about 12 games a year, maybe even more than that, depending on how good your team is. Oh, by the way, his team was really, really good all 3 years that he was there. So my initial thought was, okay, don't be a hater and say like, oh, all of a sudden he's a bust, he's this, he's that. Which I didn't see, which I was happy about that. And then my other thought was, who is this Justin Fields kid and where can I get one? Because Justin Fields, I mean, he was coming into the game the underdog. He wasn't expected to, make like he's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not the, perennial number 1 overall pick of the last 4 NFL drafts if he had been eligible to play. That's not who he is. And so it was kind of fun to see the underdog dominate, despite that the granddaddy of them all was won by the granddaddy of them all in Alabama. It was still kind of fun to see an underdog upset the, David versus Goliath. It was fun to see David win this time. That's what I kind of felt like Ohio State was in some ways, at least in the eyes of many people. That's like the matchup. Clemson was expected to kind of go away with it, and they didn't. So I thought that was kind of fun. The biggest thing for me was like, who is Justin Fields? Where can I get one? Nicole, what were your thoughts on those games?
Oh, I know Justin Fields all too well, but sadly, not that I want to. I guess we'll never know who won the Michigan-Ohio State matchup. Anyways, I do see where you're coming from, worrying about Trevor Lawrence's draft stock. I think a lot of people had a similar reaction of like, is anything going to happen to it? I don't think anything could happen to it. I mean, he'd have to throw like 20 interceptions in that game for people to be like, maybe we shouldn't. I do have concerns about him in the draft. I think he's going number 1 overall to a coach that we'll discuss later. No question. I think this game was huge for Justin Fields' draft stock, though. I thought for a time before this game and with the Big Ten Conference Championship game, I was like, he might fall to the Bears. He just might fall to the Bears. Like, it's not looking great for him right now. And then that game happened. I'm like, good for him, but bad for me. But
like, oh, hey, we got our guy. Yay. Oh, wait, our guy's too good for us. Like, he's literally too talented. Your team's too good for him, and he is now
we're too mediocre. We're too mediocre. He's too good for us.
What is it? There's a saying in NFL football. It's like, there's a saying in the NFL, you either want to be at the top winning titles or you want to be at the very bottom reloading and like rebuilding. You don't want to be stuck in the middle, which is where the Bears are kind of at right now. They're kind of stuck in the middle. They go like 8-8, get to like a first round playoff game and then lose. And then they do the same thing over again the next year.
Yeah. We have a really packed show. I will rant about Matt Nagy next week for sure. I don't think we have the time for me to do that. But it's coming. It is coming because, oh my God. But yeah, nothing could happen to Trevor Lawrence's draft stock. If anything, the Jets are really excited if they're not getting rid of Sam Darnold because they're like, hey, maybe number 2 is number 1 in this case. But my worries with Trevor Lawrence is not that there's like there is obviously East Coast bias, but in the ACC, he really hasn't played a good defense. Almost ever. Notre Dame was probably the best defense he's played. And even that defense was teetering on the side of good, but not really any good. They weren't bad either. But anytime he is up against a good defense, he kind of stutters. That worries me. Ohio State, they got to him. And that if you are tested more in the SEC and Big Ten, that's just a fact. And so my worries with him are not reading a defense or anything. He can do that. But is he ready for the NFL front 7? Is he ready for that? I don't know. I'm not saying he's a bust, nor am I rooting for it, but I do have concerns. He's still the greatest scout ever. Let me put it clearly. He's still the greatest scout ever. He looks amazing.
Right.
No doubt about that. But I'm worried about him at the NFL level, especially if he's peaked.
I almost feel bad for him. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like all of the success he had, like his freshman campaign at Clemson, anything else that he did after that didn't end in him winning a national title was essentially considered a failure. Like, if he had lost like in the national championship game his freshman year and then lost in the semifinals his sophomore year, and then this year he won the national title, I feel like that would have been better for his like overall storyline. Because like it would have been, oh, he made a mistake, then he reached perfection, right? That would have been like the perfect cherry on top. But because he reached perfection his first year out and then was almost perfect the other 2 years, but not quite, like I felt like people were almost not labeling him as a failure, but there was kind of a little bit of an asterisk next to his name because it was like, well, he got it done this freshman year. Why couldn't he get it done the other two? When in actuality, it's just really hard to win a national title in college football. Like, that's just a fact of the matter. It's really hard to bust through the factory that is Alabama every single year. And it's really hard to, bust through these SEC schools that you don't face on a normal basis, which I don't know if I'll ever understand why, like, the University of South Carolina is in the SEC, but then Clemson University is in the ACC. The only thing I can chalk it up to is, like, money. Like, it's not about location at this point because they're in the same darn state. So it's not about location. It's literally just about like, oh, they gave us this $1 million here for this TV rights deal, and this is going to buy us this and that at the, the athletic department and what have you. I won't ever understand that. I don't think we should pin it against him, like what his college football schedule was or anything, because I think he went to the best program for him. But I feel kind of bad for him because I don't want his legacy to be defined by the fact that he was perfect for one season at 19 and then at 20 he was almost perfect but not quite there. You know what I mean? Like, he's always going to be kind of held to this other level of perfection that I don't think I've seen in another quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I don't think I've seen the amount of expectations this kid has since Andrew Luck. I don't think Joe Burrow had it last year. I don't think Baker Mayfield had it. I don't think Pat Mahomes definitely didn't have it. He was like the 15th pick. Lamar Jackson didn't have it. Russell Wilson? No. Aaron Rodgers, he was on the bench. Like, Trevor Lawrence, they're expecting him to pretty much come in and transform his team into, like, maybe not a winning team, but like a somewhat semi-competitive team from day one. It's a really hard thing to do at the NFL level. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, really exciting college football and everything like that. But on one end, while there were championships being won and there were incredible stories being told about athletes that had worked for years on end, the dark underbelly of sports once again reared its ugly head just a few days ago with, of course, this is going to be our lead story today. Jared Porter of the New York Mets. He was fired after a story broke that he sent explicit, unsolicited messages and images to a female reporter back in 2016. Nicole, when you first saw this story break from Mina Kimes, what were your thoughts?
Was it Monday night? It must have been. I was just about to go to bed. I was like scrolling through Twitter for the last time, and this story pops up, and I'm like, they broke this at midnight. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, he was fired like within 8 hours, maybe. It was less than 10 hours after the story broke. By, as you said, Mina Kimes and also Jeff Passan. This is while Porter was with, I didn't even know he was with the Chicago Cubs, but he was with the Chicago Cubs as a director of professional scouting. The woman is a foreign correspondent who moved to the U.S. to cover MLB. She said at one point she ignored 60 texts. And the reason this is coming out now is because the woman feared about losing her job and her status. And once Porter got into a position with more power, she felt she had to do something so no woman would feel like her again. And the story is a really tough read. When you're in the right mindset for it, I do recommend it, though. It's just sickening. It's sickening that this is still happening. I mean, 60 texts. It's taking advantage of someone who doesn't know like the customs here and maybe the culture, and sort of preyed on that, took advantage of that because she didn't know what to do. And what are you supposed to do when you fear for your job? And all she wanted to do was cover MLB. And now the story also broke because she is now out of journalism. I don't know if that was recent or that's why the story broke, but she is out of journalism now. It's just really sad that we still have to deal with this, that we still have to go into a workplace and watch our backs and hopefully have someone else watch our six. Like, women can't just be in sports.
Right.
And why not? Like, why? I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, really. Gabby, what were your thoughts?
It makes me sad. I wish it made me, initially it made me angry. And then it just kind of started making me sad. And I hated the fact that it made me sad because it felt like one of those things where it was just like, oh, another one. Oh, cool. Okay. Another one occurred. I shouldn't feel like that. We shouldn't feel like that. Oh, another, like, another inappropriate man of power preyed on an innocent woman working in journalism. Like, I shouldn't have that reaction because the list is too long, because it has happened so much. And I understand that it's getting better. And I understand that there are entire brands and groups of people dedicated to making it better. But the fact of the matter is, when something like what happened with Kim Ng, getting hired by the Miami Marlins, that happens one moment. That was like 2 months ago that occurred, November 13th. Then 2 months later, something like this occurs in baseball. And I'm not just pinpointing baseball because it happens in every sport, it feels like. But it feels like we go one step forward, then we take 2 steps back. We go one step forward, then we take 2 steps back. It feels like we're running on a treadmill that's not like we're running on a treadmill. We're not running on a track. We're not running on open land. We're on a treadmill that the pace just kind of gets a little bit faster and we can't keep up. And the people that are pushing the buttons on the treadmill are people like Porter, which is really sad to say, because he should not be pressing the buttons on the treadmill that belongs to you and me, on the treadmill that belongs to that sports journalist who was harassed and who was neglected and abused, on the treadmill that belongs to every single woman currently working in sports or trying to find a way into the industry. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It's our race to run. So let us get the hell off that darn treadmill and get onto open land and start pushing the darn sports industry forward. I'm tired of it. It makes me sad. It makes me discouraged as a young woman wanting to work in journalism, that this is what, if not I have to face, what if it's somebody that I know personally? What if it's not the national story? What if it's just somebody else? What if it's minute? What if it's small? It's not like a general manager. What if it's just an inside boss who kind of makes comments at you? It's not big enough to be reported as a national piece like this one, but it's still happening. And how much power do you actually have to say something about it? It genuinely scares me. I really do hope that it's a wake-up call, that just in sport in general and in journalism, women aren't going anywhere. They're here to stay. I've been incredibly encouraged, at least by what I've seen online. I saw Sarah Spain post a very, very interesting tweet. Initially when you read it, it's funny, and then you look at it and you're like, well, that's right. Nicole, I don't know if you saw that tweet by her. It was like, if you want to see my,
we'll ask.
or if I want to see your private part, I will ask. And then some idiot, I think, commented on it and said, is that you asking? And the person fired right back. It wasn't Sarah Spain. It was somebody else who posted it on their Instagram story. The person commented back privately. I don't know who it was. And then it was like, oh, is that you asking? And the person fired right back. So, like, I'm not the only one outraged. You're not the only one outraged. There are armies of women trying to come together. And I feel bad because it's not everybody. It's like the one person here or there that destroys it for everyone. It's like the kid in class that comes in, or it's like the kid at basketball practice that doesn't touch the line on the darn suicide. So then all 16 of you have to do it again. Like it's that person essentially. Like I'm hoping it's I'm hoping from here we just get to go forward and we don't have to keep running on that darn treadmill controlled by someone else.
Incredibly well said. I'll say one more thing. I'll address people who, for some reason, that we still have to address. Well, why didn't she just say stop? Well, when she said stop, he stopped and he apologized. No, this is a quote straight from the story. She said, "I never really got the notion that he was truly sorry. It shouldn't have to take her saying." Let's talk about consent, kids. Consent is a clear and concise yes. Anything else is not consent. Consent. I don't know, not consent. I'm not sure, not consent. No, not consent. So, why is this so hard? And also, the people who are like, well, why didn't she just say stop? She was worried about her job. And that's the other big thing, is that women feel like they have to put up with men and their shenanigans just to keep a job in sports. And that's not how it should be. Anyways, on to lighter things as we're running out of time. NBA. What? This was happening at the same time another big story was happening. Completely diverted attention away from it. James Harden was traded to the Nets in a real blockbuster trade that also somehow included the Cavs and the Pacers. So yeah, Oladipo's on the Rockets. The Nets only got Harden, and the Rockets got basically MLB equivalent of prospects and a couple picks. Gabby, real quick, what were your thoughts on this?
I will say, kind of switching gears back to my lighter, happier self that I am when I'm talking about the sport that I love.
Got to finish on a happy note here.
The NBA is a star-driven league for a reason. I'm a big fan of players. I like players a lot. James Harden does kind of annoy me though with just how it has to be all about him. It's like my way or the highway kind of thing. And I didn't love how he ended things off in Houston, basically just by saying like screw all of you, even though he's making like $40 million a year. Anyways, the Nets essentially had to sell like half their body parts on the black market to get him. So I really hope that they can get to the finish line of the season with essentially like a head, a heart, and like one arm. Like, because all three essential parts of the body is like what they have. Like anything you need to actually physically survive as a human being, they have it. Like, let's say Kyrie Irving is the arm, Kevin Durant is their heart, and then James Harden is their head. I don't know why, but I am skeptical. I'm skeptical. I don't think it's going to work as well as people think it will. I think Kyrie Irving, I love Kyrie Irving as a player. I think he's the most talented ball handler this league has ever seen. He has absolutely changed the way I look at the point guard position. But the amount of drama that he brings with him, the amount of baggage, him just disappearing for 3 weeks, for like personal reasons that like very clearly weren't like super serious family issues. Kevin Durant, I'm a huge KD fan. I think he has absolutely redefined what it means to be small forward in this league and stuff. I don't see it working. I don't see 3 ball dominant stars that aren't really willing to give up the spotlight for each other. I just don't see it working. Nicole, what were your thoughts on that trade? Nicole, what were your thoughts on that trade?
Things just kept happening. Things kept coming. It was Harden to the Nets, and then it was like, oh, and the Cavs got Jared Allen. Oh, and the Rockets got Victor Oladipo. It was like, what's happening right now? Gabby, is Brooklyn contender or pretender? Real quick.
I'm gonna say pretender because I think there's a lot of talented teams that have better chemistry than them out west. What about you, Nicole?
I feel like I legally can't say pretender, but I tend to agree. They are a contender just for the sake of it, but they have no defense. I'm like you. I'm very skeptical. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure. Like, they have to win the title this year, or this is all for nothing. Real quick, Gabby, conference champ games. Let's get your picks. Bucks, Packers, Bills, Chiefs. Who you got going to the Super Bowl out of these 4?
I think is, unfortunately, I think it's going to be Tom Brady again, this time against Pat Mahomes. So it's going to be one generation against the other. Bucks versus Chiefs. What about you, Nicole?
Well, I got to shout out Chad Henne real quick for holding it down for the Chiefs, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Yeah, give us the Michigan Super Bowl already. I don't know if Mahomes is going to play at the time of this recording. I agree with you. It's hard to beat Rodgers in Lambeau, but Tom Brady wants to host the Super Bowl in his home stadium. Nothing's going to stop him. Don't bet against him. I actually have the Bills. This sort of feels like their year. I got the Bucks and the Bills. Other news: Philip Rivers retires, one of the greatest trash talkers of all time. Charger for most of his career for 16 years and a Colt for the 17th. Really sad. The only one remaining from that 2004 draft class is now Big Ben, and his future is in the balance. Gabby, to finish us off, what is your future fantasy for this week?
My future fantasy is a bit more of a positive outlook on our lead story for today, which is one day women won't have to put up with the shenanigans and the absolute madness that was that man. Shenanigans is the wrong word for it, because one day they won't have to run on a treadmill controlled by someone else. One day they will run on open land and have full control over what happens in their careers, and they won't be defined by anybody else. The way that they'll define themselves is based on the support that they'll get from people around them, not based on the like someone's inability to respect them, and someone disrespecting them to the point where they're willing to send them essentially pornographic content. That's what it was, via text message, and taking advantage of them in that way. Because a young woman should never have to have a job hung over her, in order to decide whether or not it's okay to protect herself, or to give consent to certain activities. Like that should never ever be a part of the equation. So my future fantasy is that one day we won't be running on the treadmill. We'll be running on flat land, alongside our, all of our other brothers and sisters who work in this industry. And of course,
Well said. Can't agree anymore.
Looking forward. Of course, at this show, we have a lot of goals to continue promoting topics like the one we talked about today. For everyone here at The Future is Female, Nicole Pinter, I'm Gabby Ducharme. We, of course, will see you all next week. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us.